The Black Templars are a Loyalist second founding Space Marine chapter derived from the Imperial Fists gene seed and their primarch, Rogal Dorn. Their origin can be traced back to the Imperial Fists' defense of Terra during the Horus Heresy. Since that time, the Black Templars have been on the longest Imperial Crusade the Imperium of Man has ever known to prove their loyalty to the Emperor of mankind. They are not a Codex Astartes-compliant chapter, and maintain a very different chapter structure and culture than is the norm amongst most of the Adeptus Astartes. They are also deeply unusual amongst the forces of the Adeptus Astartes for venerating the Emperor as a literal god, just like the mortal adherents of the Imperial Cult. After the Horus Heresy, Rogal Dorn, primarch of the Imperial Fists, resisted the breakup of the Space Marine legions into smaller chapters. It was only when the Imperial Fists were almost branded heretics that Dorn relented, allowing his beloved legion to be subdivided into chapters. One of the new chapters born of this time was the Black Templars. To prove his loyalty to the Emperor in the wake of the Imperial Fists' opposition to the Second Founding, the first chapter master of the Black Templars, the High Marshal Sigismund, assembled a massive war fleet and began the greatest Space Marine crusade in the history of the Imperium. It lasted for 10,000 standard years. Eschewing the establishment of a chapter planet, the Black Templars took to the stars in a mighty war fleet. Rather than constructing a single chapter fortress monastery, as most Space Marine chapters do, the Black Templars determined to establish a chapter keep upon each human-settled world they conquered or liberated, to keep watch for treachery, to stage future crusades, and to recruit new battle brothers. The 10 millennia long Imperial Crusade of the Black Templars has seen its warriors embroiled in some of the most momentous conflicts ever to engulf the Imperium. The subsequent High Marshals of the chapter have followed the example of their founder and taken the fight to the realms of the alien, the heretic, and the witch. The Black Templars are crusaders, holy warriors battling to bring the truth and light of the Emperor to the unconquered worlds of the galaxy. With bolt shell and chainsword, the Black Templars convert the benighted to the light of the Master of Mankind, and destroy those who refuse to welcome his truth. Each Crusade fleet is directed by the will of the Marshal in command, and each is dispatched by the decree of the High Marshal of the Black Templars to fulfill their prime mission to cleanse the stars. The Black Templars are the best known example of a crusading chapter in the whole Imperium. Their doctrines, traditions, and organisation reflect their particular approach to prosecuting the Imperium's wars. The chapter is divided into a variable number of self-contained and highly mobile forces known as Crusades, each commanded by an officer known as a Marshal, who is equivalent to a captain in a Codex Astartes-compliant chapter and whose only superior is the High Marshal, chapter master, of the chapter himself. Under most circumstances, the chapter is divided into no more than 3 separate Crusade fleets, though during especially calamitous times, the number has risen to several times more. Crusade fleets are such large and powerful bodies that they are usually subdivided into tactical bodies known as fighting companies, analogous to a standard Codex Astartes company, and each of these is led by an officer with the title of Castellan, equivalent to a lieutenant in Codex-compliant chapters. With the successful conclusion of a war for which a Crusade fleet has been raised, the various fighting companies within it are likely to be assigned a new mission, redeployed piecemeal to bolster other Crusade fleets already in the field, or sometimes amalgamated into the High Marshal's household until such time as a new Crusade fleet is mustered. Each Crusade fleet is raised from available fighting companies in order to prosecute a particular foe, purge a specific region of space, or attain a definite goal. Many of these wars are planned and undertaken by the chapter itself, according to the wisdom of its current High Marshal and other highly ranked chapter officers, but others are undertaken as a result of petitions from other institutions within the Imperium. In the main, the High Marshal of the Black Templars is likely to receive only the highest ranked petitioners, generally those within a warrant from the Senatorium Imperialis, and therefore speaking with the direct authority of the High Lords of Terra and the Emperor himself. On occasion, however, the High Marshal might agree to hear the petitions of especially highly placed inquisitors, or even well-regarded rogue traders, though he is under no legal obligation to offer such individuals any aid. Many times in its glorious history, the chapter has gone to war alongside other august imperial bodies, and a complex web of mutual obligation and honour has evolved. The chapter's propensity for launching such crusades is not merely a point of history or tradition, but something deeply rooted in its psyche. The chapter was formed during the Second Founding, from those battle brothers of the Imperial Fists Legion most disposed towards aggressive and bold styles of warfare, and furthermore, in whom the events of the Horus Heresy had imprinted an unstoppable drive to continue the Great Crusade and avenge the treacheries committed by the traitor legions. Perhaps these battle brothers were the most recently recruited of the old legion, their raw zeal yet to be tempered by the experience born of duty for which the Imperial Fists were so honoured. Regardless, the drive of those original Black Templars became instilled in the new chapter from the beginning. The processes by which its gene stock was cultivated imbued it in future generations on a genetic level. By a combination of raw zeal, genetic enhancement, relentless psycho-conditioning, and the continuous reinforcement of the chapter's histories and battle honours, each battle brother is an exemplar of the crusading warrior knight, fired with righteous anger and driven to avenge every wrong ever done to the Imperium of Man by every traitor, fiend, and alien to have ever existed. The defense of Terra. At the siege of Terra during the Horus Heresy, many champions of chaos arose from the traitor marines' ranks. During this time, the primarch of the Imperial Fists, Rogal Dorn, chose the Imperial Fists' first captain Sigismund to fulfill the role of Emperor's champion. First Captain Sigismund was given the best armour and weapons the Legion possessed, and he swore a holy duty to seek out and destroy the foul champions of chaos. He did so by challenging over 24 of the enemy leaders to single combat and slaying them or banishing them back into the Immaterium. At the end of the Horus Heresy, each of the Space Marine legions was broken down into smaller organisations known as chapters, each composed of 1,000 Astartes, as part of a plan to spread the power of the Imperial Armed Forces so that no one man could bring to bear the influence that the War Master Horus had over the Space Marines. Rogal Dorn, as Primarch of the Legion responsible for the defense of the Emperor's homeworld, Terra, initially refused to have his legion broken down. Dorn fought with his fellow Primarch Rabut Guilliman over the issue, calling the Ultramarines Primarch a coward, and Guilliman in turn accused Dorn of heresy and disloyalty to the Emperor. The Primarchs Leman Russ of the Space Wolves and Vulcan of the Salamanders favoured Dorn's stance, while Jakatai Khan of the White Scars and Korax of the Raven Guard supported Guilliman's position on the issue. It was only after an attack on the Imperial Fists strike cruiser, Terrible Angel, by the Imperial Navy and the threat of a renewed civil war between Dorn's Legion and the newly formed successor chapters of the other first founding legions, that he decided to relent and allow the Imperial Fists to be divided. Second Founding. One of the Imperial Fist's first successor chapters, the Black Templars, have since become one of the largest and most feared Space Marine chapters. The surviving Imperial Fists were split into 4 chapters during the Second Founding. The younger warriors became the Crimson Fists, while Dorn's chosen warriors remained the Imperial Fists, and the Orbital Assault Specialists were long believed, erroneously, to have formed the ranks of the infamous Soul Drinkers chapter. The 4th Imperial Fist's second founding successor chapter were the Black Templars. Sigismund, named the Black Templars' first chapter master, took with him the most zealous of the Imperial Fist's brethren, and those that shared his fervour took on the black and white panoply of Sigismund armour. They then embarked on an Imperial Crusade to prove their loyalty to the Emperor. Sigismund refused to adhere to the Codex Astartes, seeing the foundational treatise written by Rabut Guilliman as an insult to the teachings of his own Primarch, Rogal Dorn. Instead, he led his warriors into the depths of space, taking the war directly to the enemies of the Imperium. In the centuries since, the chapter has diverted even further from the standard tenets of the Adeptus Astartes. Embracing their faith and acknowledging the God Emperor's divinity, the Black Templars have developed a fanatical zealotry and aggressiveness. This deviation from orthodoxy disturbs many of their fellow Space Marine chapters, though the Black Templars' dedication to eradicating the enemies of humanity cannot be questioned. Sigismund swore an oath to prove his loyalty, never resting in the prosecution of his duties against the enemies of the Emperor. It is an oath that every succeeding High Marshal has renewed, resulting in the longest Space Marine crusade in the history of the Imperium. It has smashed through the stars for over 10,000 years and come to the fore during the wars for Armageddon. Chapter Organization. The Black Templars have no chapter homeworld, instead opting to live within their Crusade fleets. They are ever vigilant and are always ready for battle. They do establish chapter keeps on every world they conquer or reclaim for the Imperium, both to provide a source for new recruits and to act as staging posts for Crusade fleets operating across the galaxy. Black Templars have been known to abandon their keeps, only to return and reclaim them later, usually exterminating anything foolish or unlucky enough to have taken up residence in their absence. Each Black Templar Crusade fleet is overseen by an officer with the rank of Marshal, equivalent to a captain or force commander in Codex Astartes-compliant chapters. The chapter master, known as the High Marshal, currently High Marshal Helbrecht, travels between crusades on his personal flagship, the battle barge Eternal Crusader. There are usually at least 3 Black Templar crusades operating at any one time, although at one stage there were 14 known to the Imperium during the Treachery of Dalmark. Each crusade ranged in size from the deployment of 100 Space Marines and their fleet support to crusades containing several standard Codex Astartes companies. It is said that only the High Marshal has any idea of the Black Templars' full numbers, but it is rumoured in the Inquisition that they actually number close to 6,000 Space Marines. That would make them nearly as large as some of the original first founding Space Marine legions after the terrible losses of the Horus Heresy. This means that the Black Templars are one of only 3 chapters of the Adeptus Astartes, the others being the Space Wolves and the Grey Knights, thought to violate the 1,000 Space Marines to a chapter limitation, as prescribed by the Codex Astartes. Such a force united would be nigh unstoppable in the Imperium of the 41st millennium. The potential size of the Black Templars has resulted in close scrutiny by some of the more Puritan members of the Inquisition. Each Space Marine chapter is limited to a strength of approximately 1,000 Astartes by ancient tradition, and the orders of the Imperial Regent and Lord Commander of the Imperium Robert Guilliman. This was in the wake of the Horus Heresy, so that no one could ever again command enough military power to start another successful rebellion against the Emperor. The chapter's history of zealous loyalty to the Emperor, and the inability of any Inquisitor to find evidence supporting the claims of unusually high-standing troop numbers, has spared the Black Templars from further revelation of their true numbers. However, this has not prevented the Inquisition from trying to reveal the hidden size of the Black Templars. Emperor's Champion. At the very height of the Siege of Terra during the Horus Heresy, Captain Sigismund, first captain of the Imperial Fists Legion, was tasked by his primarch Rogal Dorn with leading the ground battle whilst the Emperor, Dorn and Sanguinius led the assault on the traitor War Master's battle barge. Sigismund was named Emperor's Champion, a title sometimes applied to Dorn, and in fact that act a new tradition was formed, which is honoured amongst the Black Templars, the direct descendants of Sigismund, to this day. When the Master of Mankind and his Gene Sons teleported away to face Horus, Sigismund led the remaining warriors not as a general, but as an example, taking the battle to the enemy in person and emboldening the hearts of the defenders with his deeds. Sigismund sought out the greatest warriors amongst the teeming hordes of the enemy, facing mighty Chaos Space Marine leaders as well as towering fiends from the great beyond, and defeating every single one of them. Sigismund was chosen as Emperor's Champion because he was filled with such devotion to the Father of Mankind and to the Imperium and the Great Crusade that had created it, that he was a shining exemplar of all that the Legionnaires Astartes were and could be. The oath he took when he accepted the mantle of Emperor's Champion resounded through the ages, and was so weighty that it could never be broken. While Sigismund's beloved Emperor fell on that day, the Emperor's Champion prevailed, and, with Horus defeated, the vile hosts on the surface were routed. Later, the Imperial Fists split into chapters and Sigismund's fiery zeal was recognised. He became the first High Marshal of the Black Templars, and his belief that the Great Crusade would never end became a reality, embodied by the new chapter and its never-ending crusades. Ever since the Siege of Terra, it has become a cherished tradition amongst the Black Templars to field one who the chaplains have proclaimed the Emperor's Champion. On the eve of battle, the Black Templars pray, fast, and meditate upon their duty, and it is not uncommon for one amongst their number to be blessed with some form of vision that speaks to him of his duty, and shows him portents of things yet to come. The Battle Brother then presents himself to the chaplains, and confesses his vision, and if he is found true, is declared to be the Emperor's Champion. The Battle Brother is ritually prepared for the coming battle, the attendants of the reclusion cladding him in the armour of faith and presenting him with the Black Sword. In theory, each Black Templar's crusade force has its own Emperor's Champion who serves as such for the duration of a protracted battle or a campaign. In practice, however, each fighting company is likely to have one, each battle producing its own champion if one has not come forward already. It is common for Black Templars Battle Brothers serving with the Death Watch to pray and fast on the eve of mission, just as they would before a battle within the ranks of their own chapter. On some extremely rare occasions, such a Battle Brother may feel the blessings of righteous certainty upon him, and know that he must take up the mantle of the Emperor's Champion. Within his chapter, the Battle Brother would seek out the chaplains and be declared the Emperor's champion by them, but this may not be possible whilst he is serving the Long Watch. Unless a chaplain of the Black Templars is present and able to take the Brother's confession, he must assume the mantle alone, donning the most sacred relics of his chapter and declaring his mission to his fellows. He will seek permission from the Master of the Armory to bear into battle the most potent of weapons and the most revered of armour. Few would dare refuse, for the Battle Brother's eyes burn with the zeal of his duty, and the weight of his oaths is an almost palpable thing. Regardless of the nature of the coming mission, the Emperor's champion will seek out the greatest champions and leaders amongst the ranks of the enemy and strike them down in the fury of single combat. In doing so, he acts as a shining beacon of faith by which the enemy is cast back and the warriors of the Emperor are driven to even greater acts of valour. Having taken up the trappings of the Emperor's champion, the Battle Brother remains as such only until his vision is fulfilled and he returns to the Watch Fortress. Only by the word of the chaplains is his duty discharged, and he resumes his place in the ranks once more. Specialist ranks. High Marshal. The High Marshal is the senior ranking Astartes of the Black Templars chapter, and is equivalent to the Chapter Master of Codex Astartes-compliant chapters. The fighting skills of a High Marshal are unsurpassed with bolters, blades, or bare hands, as his rank speaks of a bloody past littered with the devastated enemies of the most terrifying and inhumane sort. However, it is not enough for the High Marshal to be the chapter's foremost warrior, for he must also be a superb tactician and strategist, grounded in the teachings of those who have gone before him and honed through countless decisions made in the heat of battle. He is also steeped in the lore of the Black Templars, privy to all of the chapter's secrets. The High Marshal is the supreme commander of the chapter's ongoing crusades, keeping track of their overall progress and making tactical decisions in regards to the deployment of the chapter's forces, and occasionally blessing individual crusades with his inspirational presence. The High Marshal is one of the most autonomous military commanders in the Imperium, decreeing by his own designs where his warriors will fight, and without recourse to the dictates of the High Lords of Terra. Marshal. Marshals are the great warriors who lead the individual crusades of the Black Templars and are equivalent to captains in Codex Astartes-compliant chapters. These ferocious Space Marines possess superb tactical abilities, second in experience to only the High Marshal himself. The purity and ultimate success of a crusade is entrusted unto the Marshal, and such a duty is sacred and a glorious responsibility. A Marshal is not only a warrior so deadly that he will rarely meet his match on the field of battle, but one whose expertise includes concerns beyond the battlefield. The leading of a crusade is a mighty task indeed. As a result, only the most inspirational and determined warriors may rise to become a Marshal, having long proved their courage and determination within the ranks of the Sword Brethren or as a Castellan leading a fighting company. The Marshals are able to coordinate the Space Marines under their command and lead them in their crusades to ultimate victory, whatever the opposition. Castellan. A Castellan is a specialist officer rank that is unique to the Black Templars chapter, and is the equivalent of a Space Marine Lieutenant of a Codex Astartes-compliant chapter. A Castellan is responsible for leading an entire fighting company of the chapter on the field of battle during the numerous ongoing crusades conducted by the Black Templars. Larger Black Templars crusades often comprise a number of the chapter's fighting companies, each led by a Sword Brethren veteran, raised to the rank of Castellan. Only those Sword Brethren who have proven themselves as devotional warriors and inspirational leaders may rise to this esteemed rank. These hardened veterans have earned their ascension to command rank through their bloody and zealous dedication to the chapter's cause. As masters of the battlefield, Castellans are able to read its ebb and flow, and adjust their tactical formations accordingly. Leading from the front by example, a Castellans Astartes know what it is to be a Black Templar and a dedicated warrior of Sigismund and the Emperor, and from his leadership they learn the trade of battle and the craft of death. Sword Brethren. Equivalent to the elite members of a standard Codex-compliant Chapter's veteran First Company, the greatest warriors of a Black Templars crusade are inducted into the Marshal's household. Known as the Sword Brethren, they are no longer required to train neophytes, and they will receive additional training, particularly in the use of tactical dreadnought armor. After completion of his training, Sword Brethren will use Terminator armor whenever available, usually selecting melee weapons to use with it, an area of combat where all Black Templars excel. Like most Black Templars, Sword Brethren will fight with others out of familiarity rather than in organised squads, and they will always be found in the thickest of fighting. If the Marshal of a crusade is either killed or promoted to the position of High Marshal of a chapter, one of the Sword Brethren will be elevated to take its place. The Sword Brethren of a crusade who receives this honour is decided by ritual combat. The winner of the melee earns the right to become a Marshal upon the approval of the High Marshal. There has only been one case in Black Templars history of the High Marshal withholding his approval or reversing it. This was the Gavart repeal of the 36th millennium. Sword Brethren of the Black Templars often wear a cream-coloured cloak, and have red trim on their black pauldrons to signify their elite status. Initiate. Unlike in other chapters, an initiate is not an Astartes who is new to the chapter, but is the rank held by the majority of Black Templars battle brothers until they have served long enough to be promoted to the veteran status of a member of the Sword Brethren. Initiates served in most of the standard tactical roles seen within Space Marine chapters, and are also each responsible for adopting and training a neophyte until he has earned his initiate status. Neophyte. A neophyte of the Black Templars differs from the neophytes of other chapters in that they have already successfully completed their physical process of transformation into an Astartes by the time they achieve this rank. This would normally grant them initiate status in Codex-compliant chapters, but in the Black Templars this only means that they are ready to truly begin their training. Every neophyte, after he has been deemed worthy by the chapter's chaplains and apothecaries, is assigned to an apprenticeship with a full initiate of the chapter, essentially serving in some regards as his squire. When the neophyte's initiate feels that his student has gained the experience and wisdom necessary to make him an asset to the chapter, he is raised to become an initiate himself. The new initiate is then required to begin the personal training of his own neophyte, and so the process repeats itself. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked learning about the Black Templars and Warhammer 40k, then give this video a like, and please comment below what you'd like me to cover next. My name is George, this is Jam Punch, and I will see you next time for more Warhammer 40k lore.